Welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to another exciting episode of My Hair Roastist. So
look at these two guys, Peter and Paul. They're sweating like they're in a sauna.
My wife has PBS on. They're doing the. I love folk music, people. I mean, I'm an old folkie. What can I say? But anyway, so there's this discussion going on Facebook, and I'm not going to get into a whole lot of it. See, I lived on Okinawa for 5 wonderful years. I have very good memories. I have very bad memories. I have memories of every type that one could have. Just to make some points concerning that little discussion. I'm about to cry. I don't want to cry about this. So, I would rather just remember the good times. But, you know, to be honest with you, looking back on those years, there, like I said, there was good and there was bad and there was everything else. You know, I honestly don't think that some 5, 6, 7, 8-year-old boy needs to be concerned about accidentally picking up a grenade or a landmine. Landmine?
Something like that. Yeah. Landmine.
So, we had something we call tickle bees. Don't ask me what a tickle bee is, because I have no idea.
Just try to Google it, and maybe you'll find it, maybe you won't.
Well, what we would do is there were bees, okay, but you'd put them in, and by the way, that stuff on my fingers is the seasoning for our dinner tonight. That's not that I have dirty fingers. It's just...
No, it's blood from the cat. Ah!
What we would do is we would put them in our hands, like, you know, we'd cup our hands together, and it would tickle because they were flying around in there.
They were just bouncing around.
Yeah, and you know, when you're a little boy or a little girl, at that age, you know, you're still very sensitive to things, and you know, you'd feel it would tickle. You know, we'd giggle or whatever. As for the closing of military bases on Okinawa, the way they would close a base is this. Like where we lived, what they did is they closed the base. How did they close the base? They renamed it.
Oh, God.
So officially it was closed. It was no more.
Kind of stupid, huh?
Yeah, but it still existed, just under another name. And many times what they would do with the new bases, is they would expand them. They would make them larger. Now, yes, it's true. In some cases, they actually did close a base. I mean, a legitimate closing of a base. But some other base was expanded or a new base was started. More and more American troops over there. As I've said in other videos, I've talked about this in other videos, so I'm going to try to make this a shorter video. The transport aircraft that were taking troops over to Vietnam, they would come back with drugs, loaded with drugs. So drugs were plentiful and cheap on Okinawa. Marijuana, Thai sticks, you know, stuff like that, plentiful and cheap. And it's not like people didn't know what was going on. It's just, hey, you know, this, you know, you had to be an officer to be a pilot. So, you know, you're an officer automatically. You know, my dad was an officer most of his career. You know, when he started off, he was 6th Infantry Division as a private. You know, my wife's dad was an MP. He was in the Army Air Corps. But I don't think her dad had...
No, I don't think he... Maybe past corporal, maybe, or
okay.
something.
Well, you know, when you're an officer, you can get away with a lot of stuff.
And given my father was only in for like 5 years.
Oh,
5
okay.
years.
Well, see, my dad was a career man, so that's... My step-grandfather, if you will, was on the battleship Texas during the battle for Okinawa. There were a lot of people on that island who had served during the war. like I said, people, I have good memories and I have bad memories, and
you have to forget the bad memories.
Yeah, which is not easy to do. And you know, there's some film, some old color footage from the war.
You better put that up so the cat doesn't eat it.
I
had to rescue it from him last night.
What, this?
That one that says Philadelphia, the film.
Oh, yeah. You see, where we lived was right there at the Shuri-Naha line, for those who know what I'm talking about. So, overlooking our school was a cliff. I never went up there. I always wanted to go up on that cliff, but I never did it. But there were holes dug into the side of the cliff. There were shelves, I call them shelves because that's kind of what they look like. As you go up, there's a shelf here, a shelf here, a shelf here, and then on each shelf there were holes dug in. Basically, you know, probably snipers or somebody like that was up in there, and it overlooked our school. There were these caves on the island. Anyway, what I was saying is, during the color footage from the war, this GI, he goes up to, I say GI, I don't know if he was a Marine, if he was a soldier, I don't know what he was, but he goes up to this older lady and this child. This child is basically naked, shivering, and goes up, and it reminds me of my sister. I can't get that out of my head. And this older lady, this Mama-san, and he's taken a canteen over to her, the old metal canteens, and she runs away and jumps off a cliff. I don't know if she had seen one too many things, or if she fell for the propaganda from the Japanese. I don't know what, you know, I can't get into her head. And then they show footage of her body down there at the bottom of the cliff in the surf. And I'm not going to talk about my friend and his brother. You know, my father had served in World War II in the Canadian Merchant Navy, which in the United States you call it the Canadian Merchant Marine. My grandfather was Canadian Navy, but he served in the Atlantic. He was first engineer. My step-grandfather was, like I said, on the battleship Texas. And you know, I would love to see Okinawa become Okinawa again. When I lived there, when we left, officially the United States government was turning the island over to the command of the Japanese. Like, that actually happened. But see, there were riots, there were demonstrations, there were protests, because the Okinawans wanted to either rule themselves, self-rule, or wanted China to rule them. They didn't want Japan to rule them. They were well aware of Okinawan history with Japan. Japan has always been an occupier, an invader and an occupier of Okinawa. I have great respect for the late King Shoin. He was the unifier of the island. There were 3 kingdoms at one time on Okinawa, and King Shoin unified the 3 kingdoms and developed what we now know as Okinawa. Now, when I lived there, Shuri Castle was in ruins. I mean, it basically didn't exist. It was at best rubble here and there. Today it's been rebuilt. But, you know, look, I'll be frank with you. I mean, I blame both the United States and Japan for the HELL for that Okinawa has gone through in recent history. Japan more than the United States, because Japan has been the invader and occupier a hell of a lot longer than the United States has.
Japan needs to stay in their own damn country and leave everybody else alone.
Yeah, exactly. And, you know, I mean,
Japan causes a lot of trouble.
you know, how long has the United States been on Okinawa compared to how long Japan has been on Okinawa? It really doesn't compare, to be frank with you. The length of time, I mean, Japan's been there a hell of a lot longer.
Where they don't belong at.
Yeah, Japan belongs in Japan, the United States belongs in the United States.
Stay out.
You know, and I mean, I remember riots and demonstrations, and you know, the Okinawans did not want Japan to govern them. Let's see if I have anything here that I can point to. I can't see. The shishi dogs you see in front of my dad's flag, the green and white, those are from Okinawa. Some of that stuff is from Okinawa, Hong Kong, and other places. But, yeah. So, you know, look, hey, I've lived there. I loved living there. I loved growing up there. Well, like I said, you know, no 5 or 6 or 7 or 8-year-old boy or 3 or 4-year-old boy or girl needs to be worried about picking up a rock and finding a hand grenade or a landmine under there. Who knows what's going on? I mean, I don't know what it's like now. You know, I know that in the Netherlands, to this day, farmers plow up landmines from the First World War.
Shit.
I mean, frankly, if I plowed something like that up, I would just leave it alone. But what do? They take them and they put them into a pile on the side of the road.
Oh, God.
And the government comes by and picks them up. Expect occasional snow to begin, and it popped up and then it went away. So it's 21 degrees
I'm
Fahrenheit.
sure they're in such a condition that if you do much more than look at them, they could blow up.
Yeah. 19 degrees Fahrenheit, folks. It just changed. But yeah.
Wave.
Yeah. So that's all I gotta say. I mean, and Kat, if you're watching this, how are you doing? We haven't heard from you. I haven't seen you post. We're concerned about you. Bye.